the next question I'd like to ask is for everyone. And Margaret, you have seen private, I guess, patients, we can call them, for 40 years, 50. You speak to people, you're a very trusted and wise woman, and people trust you more than anyone that they in their whole life. You're their therapist, they come to you for complete confidentiality. So you hear the deepest, most confidential information of anyone in society. So the question is, regarding sex drive, what is the reality for women in their 40s, 50s, 60s? What should their realistic expectation be? And then the question for everyone else is, aside from what can be done from a nutritional plant, herb, supplement, with that. So I guess we could start with the question with women, and then you could also talk about men's sex drive, and then from the emotional standpoint, and then if anyone else wants to comment from the plant nutritional side.
So it's really important to understand that men and women are very different when it comes to their sexuality. Men have testosterone, which motivates them to have sex for most of their life. Women reach their peak in their mid-30s, but what happens for women, and I see this all the time with the couples that I work with, is that what motivates women sexually is very, very different than what motivates most men. I mean, this is not across the board, because sometimes it's the reverse. But women get turned on by connection, by intimacy, by being seen, by being valued, by romance. And men can often be with their partner, watch TV, and then want to have sex. And
it was a dirty show.
And most women can't do that. They need time with their partner. They need fun. They need talking. They need to be seen. They need to be valued. They need to be heard. And this is something that I deal with all the time, because almost every couple that I work with, one partner is complaining about a lack of sex. Now, most of the time, it's the man who's complaining, but once in a while, it's the woman, because she actually may have more testosterone than he does, and he may be the person who wants the intimacy, who wants the emotional connection. So it can happen both ways. But so many of the men say, well, I get my connection through sex. But the women can't feel sexual until they have the connection. And then the men say, well, why do I have to do it her way? But that's the way it's gonna be, because she's just not going to be turned on if there's not the connection. The emotional connection, the spiritual connection. If she doesn't feel loved and cared for, there's no way that she's going to be able to access her sexuality, and especially after having children. Now, of course, food makes a big difference, because, if you're eating junk, your energy is going to be too low. You're going to be too tired, especially if you have kids. You're going to be wiped out. Nobody feels like having sex when they're wiped out. And so food plays a very big part in this in terms of energy. But even the people that I see who are eating really, really well and are physically very healthy, if they don't know how to have a connection with each other, if they haven't learned to do that, if they haven't learned to resolve conflict in a way where they're learning about themselves and each other, and they feel that deep connection, most of the time, one or the other, and usually it's the woman, is not going to feel like having sex. And of course, that creates a big problem for the man, because he's got the testosterone, he's got the drive. And, of course he wants to have sex. There's nothing wrong with that. But they have to learn to connect. And that is what I work with when I work with couples, is helping them understand what it really means to create that deeper level of connection. And it's amazing what happens when people start to do that. All of a sudden, people who have not had sex for months or even years are starting to have sex again, because it's a natural outgrowth of that emotional connection.
I'll jump in here. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Hot Plants. I spent a few decades traveling the world investigating, I mean, I still do this, but I spent a few decades investigating plants all around the world, and everywhere I went, I would encounter plants that were, among other things, legendary for enhancing sex somehow. And there are, and I completely respect what you say about the emotional connection. I mean, obviously that's an essential. A Hawaiian elder once said a marvelous thing. He said, true healing puts into order the body, mind, and spirit with the past, the present, and the future. You can throw all the vitamins and fiber and wheatgrass at yourself that you want, but if you don't have a whole body, mind, spirit thing going on, it's not going to do much except maybe make your skin look better, okay? But that's the reality. And so the emotional connection is super important. Finding ways to open yourself up just naturally that can include meditation and yoga, something Gabriel knows about. I'm in my 50th year of daily yoga practice. I understand the value of that. But there are also botanicals out there that make a difference. I meet men and women who want to be more aroused than they are. And maca is phenomenal for that. Maca is a turnip-like plant. I've worked with it for 22 years in the Peruvian Andes now, though I don't derive money from its trade. And it is a staple food among the people in the Andes. It's made into, it actually looks like a turnip, but you dry it and then you grind it into flour, and it's used in hot drinks, cold drinks, breads, cookies, cakes, pastries, soups, sauces, you name it. And it does, in fact, get you aroused. And it appears to do this to the extent that we understand this by acting on the sex centers of the brain. Rhodiola rosea, which I mentioned before, has very good studies for enhancing both male and female sexual function in a variety of ways. A new study that came out on ashwagandha last year showed that in women, it enhanced arousal, lubrication, comfort of intercourse, and quality of orgasm. Not bad. We see Tonkat Ali from Malaysia, not to be confused with a popular boxer, Tonkat Ali, which is a tree root that has pretty profound effects in terms of boosting testosterone and enhancing erectile function. We saw three, I think, spectacular erectile function studies with red ginseng extract in large quantities a few years back. So there are botanicals that, I mean, if you don't have the connection going on with your partner, then it's kind of just, meat slapping. But if you're, for really, let's get serious here. But if you're actually, wanting to, you need a little help, and that happens with aging, then there are botanicals that can make a significant difference that are safe. The most recent so-called female Viagra drug, which they're all failures, of course, because they don't address anything that you're talking about. What you're supposed to do is right before you're about to have intercourse, you're supposed to stab yourself with a hypodermic needle to get yourself going. If anything is going to reduce the possibility of arousal, it is, unless you're like really weirdly kinky, it is stabbing yourself right before intercourse. So in addition to the emotional connection, in addition to proper nutrition, in addition to drinking water, clean water and breathing pure air and getting exercise and all the things that matter, there are herbs out there that can make a difference, that can support your sexual health. Many of them enjoy human clinical studies, and they're well worth looking into.
May I mention one more? Damiana is a botanical widely used by women that tends to warm up the core of a woman, and this has helped some women to heat up.
I couldn't disagree more strongly. That Damiana was a 1948 marketing scam by a Chicago company that came up with the idea that if they used this herb from Mexico that never had a history of sexual use, and they positioned it as the Mexican sex secret, they could make a lot of money, and they did. Varro Tyler, the very famous pharmacognosist, wrote about this extensively, and respectfully, Damiana has no sexual value whatsoever.